The darkness of space split open like a wound. Massive ships pushed through the tear in reality, their hulls gleaming with an unnatural shine. These were not machines made of metal and circuits. They were living things, bred for war and shaped by centuries of genetic tampering. Commander Vexith stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, his yellow eyes scanning the star system before them. His scaled skin rippled with excitement as data flowed across the organic displays growing from the ship's walls. Another system, another species to hunt. The Kethvar had been doing this for 3,000 years. They moved from star to star, finding worlds with intelligent life. They studied these species for a few cycles, learning their weaknesses. Then came the hunt. It always ended the same way, with the prey species extinct and the Kethvar moving on to find new targets. "Report," Vexith hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air. Sub-Commander Zelketh, his second-in-command, approached with quick steps. Her claws clicked against the living floor of the bridge. "The third planet shows signs of advanced life, Commander. They call themselves humans. They have cities, technology, weapons, but nothing that should trouble us." Vexith studied the images flowing across the displays. Blue and green world, billions of the soft-skinned creatures moving across its surface. He could see their cities from space, sprawling things made of stone and metal. Primitive, but showing some intelligence. "Their technology level?" he asked. "Early space age. They have achieved flight beyond their atmosphere, but have not mastered faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and some energy weapons. No shield technology detected. Perfect." Vex felt his hunting instincts wake up. These humans looked weak. No natural armor, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. Their skin was soft and easily damaged. They would make good sport. "Begin the hunt," he ordered. The Kethvar fleet moved toward Earth like a pack of predators approaching wounded prey. Their bioships pulsed with life, weapons growing from their hulls like thorns. The hunt was about to begin. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working late in her laboratory when the first warnings came through. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied the possibility of alien life. For years, she had wondered what would happen if humanity ever met another intelligent species. She had hoped for peaceful contact, for learning and sharing knowledge. The alarms that filled her lab told her that her hopes had been naive. "All personnel, this is not a drill," came the voice over the emergency broadcast system. "Unknown objects have appeared in Earth orbit. Military forces are responding. Civilian populations in major cities should seek shelter immediately." Sarah ran to the window. In the night sky above her city, she could see them. Ships. Massive alien ships hanging in the darkness like predators waiting to strike. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their surfaces seeming to move and pulse with life. Her phone buzzed with messages from colleagues around the world. Similar ships were appearing over every major city on Earth. London, New York, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo. All of them now had alien vessels hanging overhead like swords waiting to fall. The first attack came at dawn. Sarah watched from her window as beams of light fell from the ships above. Where they touched the city, buildings simply disappeared. Not destroyed, dissolved. The beams seemed to unmake matter itself, leaving behind only empty air and dust. But the aliens were not trying to destroy everything. Sarah realized they were being surgical in their strikes. They hit military bases, government buildings, communication centers. They were cutting off humanity's ability to fight back in an organized way. Within hours, the world's military forces were scattered and confused. The alien ships seemed to know exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage to human coordination efforts. It was like they had studied humanity for years before attacking. Then came the landing ships. Sarah watched smaller vessels drop from the main fleet like seeds falling from a tree. They landed in the ruins of the city, and from them came the hunters themselves. The first time Sarah saw a Kethvar, she understood why they were so confident. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body covered in scales that seemed to shift color to match its surroundings. Its arms ended in claws that could cut through steel, and its mouth was full of teeth designed for tearing flesh. When it moved, it flowed like liquid death, but what frightened Sarah most was the intelligence in its yellow eyes. This was not a mindless beast. This was a thinking predator that had planned this attack with care. The Kethvar hunting parties moved through the ruined city like wolves through a flock of sheep. They carried weapons that seemed to be part technology, part living creature. When they fired, the weapons screamed like wounded animals. But something unexpected happened in those first days of the invasion. The humans did not simply run and hide as the Kethvar expected. Instead, they began to fight back. Captain Marcus Rivera had been leading a squad of Marines when the attacks began. His base had been one of the first targets hit, but Rivera and his men had survived in underground bunkers. As the aliens moved through the city above, Rivera made a decision that would change everything. "We're going hunting," he told his men. Rivera had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in wars around the world, and he understood something that the aliens did not. When you corner a dangerous animal, it doesn't just run away. It fights back with everything it has. Rivera's squad was one of hundreds around the world that came to the same conclusion. Instead of hiding from the alien hunters, they began to study them. They watched from hiding places, learning how the Kethvar moved, how they hunted, what their weaknesses might be. What they discovered gave them hope. The aliens were incredibly dangerous, but they were also predictable. They had been hunting weak prey for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with prey that fought back intelligently. The first human victory came 3 days after the invasion began. Rivera's squad had been tracking a Kethvar hunting party through the ruins of downtown. The aliens were moving in a pattern, sweeping through buildings looking for human survivors to capture. Rivera split his squad into 3 groups. While one group made noise to attract the aliens' attention, the other 2 moved into position. When the Kethvar hunting party followed the sound, they walked into a trap. The humans had rigged several buildings with explosives. As the aliens entered the kill zone, Rivera gave the signal. The explosions brought down 3 buildings at once, burying the hunting party under tons of rubble. When the dust settled, Rivera and his men moved in to check for survivors. They found 2 Kethvar still alive, trapped under the debris. The aliens looked up at the humans with something Rivera had never expected to see in the eyes of such dangerous predators: fear. Word of Rivera's success spread quickly through the underground networks that had formed among the human survivors. Other groups began to copy his tactics, using the aliens' own hunting instincts against them. The Kethvar had expected to find a planet full of easy prey. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that learned from every encounter. Every time a hunting party disappeared, the humans seemed to understand their tactics better. Dr. Chen had joined one of the resistance groups forming in her city. Her knowledge of biology made her valuable in understanding how the aliens functioned. She studied video footage of the Kethvar looking for weaknesses. What she found changed her understanding of what they were facing. These aliens were not just natural predators. They had been changed, modified by technology and genetic engineering to be perfect hunters. Every part of their bodies was designed for killing, but perfect hunters had a weakness. They had become too specialized. They could only think like predators, only see the world through the eyes of creatures that hunted weaker prey. "They don't understand us," Chen explained to the resistance leaders. "They've been hunting species that run and hide when attacked. They don't know how to deal with prey that studies them back, that learns their patterns and uses them against them." This understanding spread through the human resistance like wildfire. Instead of simply trying to survive, the humans began to actively hunt their hunters. Commander Vexith received the first reports of missing hunting parties with confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Kethvar had never lost entire squads to primitive prey. The humans had no technology that could threaten his warriors. Their weapons were crude, their tactics simple. But the reports kept coming. Hunting parties were disappearing. Others returned with tales of humans who seemed to know exactly where they would be, who set traps that showed an understanding of Kethvar psychology. Vexith ordered larger hunting parties. If the humans wanted to fight, he would show them the true power of the Kethvar. He sent 50 warriors to clear out a human stronghold in what had once been called Seattle. None of them came back. The humans had learned to coordinate their attacks. They used the city's underground tunnels to move unseen. They set traps that used the Kethvar's own senses against them. When the aliens followed their prey into the tunnels, they found themselves in a maze where the humans had every advantage. By the end of the first month, something unprecedented was happening. The Kethvar were beginning to fear going to the surface of the planet they were supposed to be conquering. Rivera stood in what had once been a subway station, now converted into a command center for the human resistance. Around him, men and women from every nation on Earth worked together with a purpose he had never seen before. They had learned to communicate through quantum encrypted networks that the aliens couldn't track. They shared information about Kethavar movements, weaknesses, and tactics. "Status report," Rivera said to his communications officer. "Resistance cells in every major city are reporting successful hunts," came the reply. "The aliens are changing their patterns. They're moving in larger groups, staying closer to their ships. They're acting like prey," Rivera finished. He smiled grimly. "Good. Let them learn what it feels like to be hunted." Dr. Chen looked up from her workstation where she was studying captured Kethvar equipment. "Marcus, I think I've figured out something important. These aliens, they're not just hunters. Hunting is their entire culture, their whole reason for existing. They can't conceive of a world where they're not the apex predator." "What does that mean for us?" "It means we're doing more than just fighting back. We're attacking the foundation of everything they believe about themselves. Every time we kill one of their hunting parties, we're proving that they're not as superior as they thought." Rivera nodded. Around the world, humanity was learning the same lesson. The aliens had made a mistake. They had assumed that because humans looked weak, they were weak. They had not understood that humanity's greatest strength was not physical power, but the ability to adapt, to learn, to change tactics when the old ones stopped working. The Kethvar had spent 3,000 years hunting species that followed predictable patterns. But humans were different. They could become anything they needed to become to survive. And right now they needed to become hunters. As the first month of the invasion ended, the situation was not what anyone had expected. The aliens still controlled Earth's orbit and many of the planet's major cities. But the humans were no longer running and hiding. They were hunting back. Commander Vexith stood on his bridge, staring down at the blue and green world that should have been conquered by now. His hunting parties were requesting support for simple operations that should have been routine. His warriors were reporting that the humans seemed to anticipate their every move. For the first time in his long career, Vexith was beginning to wonder if the Kethvar had finally found prey that could bite back hard enough to hurt them. On the surface of Earth, in hidden bases and underground tunnels, humanity was preparing for a war unlike any they had ever fought. They were learning to hunt creatures that had been perfected for hunting them, and they were getting very good at it. 3 months had passed since the Kethvar arrived at Earth. In those months, everything had changed. The planet's surface was a battlefield, but not the kind the aliens had expected. This was not a war of conquest where one side overwhelmed the other with superior force. This had become a deadly game of cat and mouse, except no one was sure anymore who was the cat and who was the mouse. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been a university laboratory. Now it served as one of humanity's most important research centers. The room was filled with alien technology that human teams had captured from defeated Kethvar hunting parties. Every piece was being studied, taken apart, understood. Sarah held a Kethvar weapon in her hands. The thing was still alive, she realized. It pulsed with a slow heartbeat and was warm to the touch. The aliens didn't just use biotechnology, they were part of it. Their weapons, their ships, even their armor were living creatures bred for specific purposes. "It's incredible," she said to her research partner, Dr. James Harrison. "Everything they use is organic. Their technology is based on evolution and genetic engineering, not manufacturing." James nodded as he examined a piece of Kethvar armor under a microscope. "Which explains why they're so good at hunting. Their equipment literally adapts to their needs. But it also gives us an advantage. How so? Living things can be killed. Living things can get sick. Living things can be turned against their masters if you know how." Sarah smiled. This was exactly the kind of thinking that was helping humanity survive. Instead of trying to fight the aliens with conventional tactics, humans were learning to think differently. They were studying their enemies like scientists, not just soldiers. The research center was connected to a vast network of similar facilities around the world. In hidden bases and underground laboratories, the best minds of humanity were working together to understand the Kethvar. Every captured weapon, every piece of alien equipment, every scrap of information was shared instantly with research teams on every continent. Captain Marcus Rivera entered the laboratory carrying a datapad full of new intelligence. His team had just returned from a successful hunt in the ruins of Chicago. They had managed to capture an entire Kethvar hunting squad alive. "What did you learn from the prisoners?" Sarah asked. Rivera's expression was grim. "More than we wanted to know. The Kethvar aren't just random raiders. They're part of something bigger. They've been doing this for thousands of years, moving from star system to star system, hunting intelligent species to extinction. James looked up from his microscope. How many species have they destroyed? According to our prisoners, they've hunted in over 200 star systems. They've completely destroyed at least 50 intelligent species. The others they've kept alive as breeding stock for future hunts. The room fell silent. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity wasn't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting to avoid becoming another extinct species in the Kethvar's collection of trophies. There's more, Rivera continued. The Kethvar home fleet is massive. What we're facing here is just a small hunting expedition. If they call for reinforcements, then we need to make sure they don't get the chance, Sarah said firmly. How long do we have? Unknown. But our prisoners keep asking when we're going to surrender. They can't understand why we're still fighting. According to them, most species give up after the first few weeks. Dr. Harrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. They clearly haven't studied human history. We have a long tradition of refusing to give up when someone tries to wipe us out. This was true, Sarah realized. Throughout human history, whenever a group had been threatened with extinction, they had found ways to fight back. Sometimes they lost, but they never stopped trying. It was what made humans different from the other species the Kethvar had hunted. The difference was becoming clear in the war itself. While the Kethvar followed the same hunting patterns they had used for millennia, humans were adapting their tactics almost daily. Each engagement taught them something new about their enemies. Each captured piece of technology gave them new weapons to use. Rivera pulled up a holographic map showing Kethvar movements around the globe. Red dots marked known alien positions, while blue areas showed human-controlled territory. What Sarah saw surprised her. We're winning, she said in amazement. In some areas, yes, Rivera confirmed. The aliens still control most of the major cities and all of the orbital space. But look at this. He highlighted sections of the map in green. These are areas where Kethvar hunting parties no longer go. They've learned to avoid them because too many of their people have disappeared there. The green areas were spreading. Human resistance fighters had learned to make certain territories so dangerous for the aliens that they simply stayed away. It was psychological warfare on a planetary scale. The key is that we're not trying to defeat them in open battle, Rivera explained. We're making them afraid to hunt us. Every time they send out a hunting party, they know there's a chance none of them will come back. This strategy was working because it attacked the Kethvar where they were weakest, their psychology. The aliens were predators, but they were used to hunting prey that behaved predictably. Humans were refusing to be predictable. Sarah remembered the early days of the invasion, when people had hidden in basements and subway tunnels, hoping the aliens would pass them by. That hadn't worked. The Kethvar were too good at finding hidden prey, but then someone had gotten the idea to reverse the situation. Instead of hiding from the hunters, humans began hunting them back. The results had been dramatic. Show me the latest engagement reports, Sarah requested. Rivera activated a series of video feeds from resistance cells around the world. Sarah watched in fascination as humans used tactics that would have been impossible just months earlier. In the ruins of London, a team of former SAS soldiers had learned to move through the underground like ghosts. They tracked Kethvar hunting parties for days, learning their patterns before striking with surgical precision. The aliens never knew what hit them. In Tokyo, a group of engineers had figured out how to hack into the aliens' biotechnology. They could turn Kethvar weapons against their owners, or cause alien armor to malfunction at critical moments. In New York, former police officers had organized the survivors into an intelligence network that tracked every alien movement in the city. When a Kethvar hunting party entered an area, they found themselves surrounded by humans who knew exactly where they were and where they were going. But perhaps most impressive was what was happening in the Australian outback. The Aboriginal people there had taught other humans how to become truly invisible in the landscape. They could track aliens across vast distances, strike without warning, and disappear again like they had never been there. The Kethvar are starting to make mistakes, Rivera observed. They're frustrated, angry. They're not used to prey that fights back this effectively. Sarah nodded. She had been studying psychological profiles of captured Kethvar warriors. What she found was troubling for the aliens. Their entire culture was built around being apex predators. Their religion, their social structure, their sense of identity, everything depended on their ability to hunt successfully. But humans were proving that the Kethvar were not invincible. Every successful human attack damaged more than just alien equipment and personnel. It damaged their fundamental belief in their own superiority. We're not just fighting a war, Sarah realized. We're destroying their entire worldview. Dr. Harrison looked up from his work with excitement. Sarah, you need to see this. I've been studying the neural patterns of our Kethvar prisoners. Their brains are actually changing. Sarah hurried over to his workstation. On the screen, she could see brain scans of Kethvar warriors taken at different times during their captivity. When we first captured them, their neural patterns showed typical predator responses: confidence, aggression, dominance. But look at the recent scans. The newer brain images showed different patterns. Areas associated with fear and uncertainty were much more active. The confidence regions had shrunk dramatically. They're developing anxiety disorders, Harrison explained. These are apex predators who have never experienced being prey. The psychological stress is literally rewiring their brains. This discovery was immediately shared with resistance cells around the world. If the Kethvar were becoming psychologically vulnerable, humans could exploit that weakness. Captain Rivera began developing new tactics based on this information. Instead of just killing alien hunting parties, human teams began focusing on psychological warfare. They left messages for the aliens to find, proving that humans were watching them, studying them, planning their deaths. They started taking trophies from defeated Kethvar warriors and displaying them where other aliens would find them. They began stalking individual hunters for weeks, letting them know they were being followed before finally striking. The effect on Kethvar morale was devastating. Hunting parties that had once moved with confidence through human cities now jumped at shadows. They traveled in larger groups, stayed closer to their ships, and avoided areas where humans had been active. But humans were learning to use these defensive behaviors against the aliens as well. Larger groups were easier to track. Predictable routes could be trapped. The more cautious the Kethvar became, the more vulnerable they made themselves to human tactics. 6 months after the invasion began, Commander Vexth was receiving reports that would have been unthinkable when he first arrived at Earth. Kethvar warriors were refusing to go on hunting missions. Some had developed what human psychiatrists would recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder. The hunting expedition that was supposed to have conquered Earth in a matter of weeks had become a nightmare that seemed to have no end. Every day brought new reports of missing hunting parties, failed missions, and warriors who could no longer function as effective predators. Vexth called a meeting of his sub-commanders. When they gathered in the bioship's command chamber, he could see the stress in their scaled faces. These were warriors who had participated in the extinction of dozens of species. Now they looked like beaten animals. "Status report," he demanded. Sub-Commander Zalketh spoke first. "Our hunting efficiency has dropped by 70%, Commander. The humans have divided the planet into zones that they control completely. Our warriors are afraid to enter these areas." "Afraid?" Vexth hissed. "Kethvar warriors do not know fear." "They do now," another sub-commander replied quietly. "The humans have taught it to them." The room fell silent. For a species that had defined itself by its ability to inspire fear in others, the admission that they were now the ones experiencing fear was almost incomprehensible. "What do the humans want?" Vexth asked. "Have they made any demands for surrender?" "No, Commander," Zalketh replied. "They don't seem interested in negotiation. They just keep hunting us." On the surface of Earth, in hidden command centers around the globe, human leaders were planning the next phase of their war. They had learned to fight defensively, to make their planet too dangerous for the aliens to hunt in safely. Now they were ready to take the offensive. Dr. Chen had made a breakthrough in understanding Kethvar biotechnology. Working with captured alien equipment, she had figured out how to interface human computer systems with alien biotechnology. This meant humans could potentially control Kethvar weapons and equipment. "If we can hack their systems," she explained to Rivera, "we can turn their own technology against them. Their ships, their weapons, everything they use is connected through biological networks. We can poison those networks." Rivera smiled grimly. "Like giving them a computer virus, but literally." "Exactly. But better than that, we can learn to use their own equipment. We can start fighting them with weapons as advanced as theirs." This was the breakthrough humanity needed to move from defense to offense. If they could master Kethvar technology, they could begin striking at the alien ships in orbit. They could take the fight beyond Earth's surface. Around the world, Human engineers and scientists began working to understand and replicate alien biotechnology. It was dangerous work. The living machines sometimes tried to fight back or infect their users. But humans were learning to master these risks. The first successful test came when a team in Brazil managed to get a captured HFY fighter craft operational. The small bioship responded to human commands and could even be modified with human technology. It was primitive compared to the aliens' larger vessels, but it proved that humans could learn to use their enemies' tools. Within weeks, human teams were operating captured alien equipment all over the planet. They used HFY sensors to track alien movements. They turned alien weapons against their former owners. Most importantly, they began to understand how the aliens' orbital fleet functioned. The HFY had made a critical error in their understanding of humanity. They had assumed that because humans were physically weaker and technologically less advanced, they were inferior in all ways. But humans had advantages the aliens had never encountered before. Humans could adapt, they could learn. They could change their thinking when old approaches stopped working. And perhaps most importantly, humans could cooperate on a scale that the individualistic HFY couldn't understand. Where the aliens saw a planet full of scattered primitive creatures, humans had built a unified resistance that spanned every continent. Information flowed instantly between resistance cells on opposite sides of the world. Tactical innovations developed in one city were being used by fighters everywhere within hours. The HFY had conquered dozens of species by exploiting their inability to coordinate effective resistance. But humanity was proving to be different. The more pressure the aliens applied, the more unified human resistance became. By the end of the first year of invasion, the situation had completely reversed from what anyone had expected. The HFY still controlled orbital space in many major cities, but they were no longer hunters. They had become the hunted. Human teams were actively stalking individual HFY warriors across the planet. They had learned to use the aliens' own senses and instincts against them. They had mastered alien technology well enough to turn it into weapons against its creators. Most importantly, they had proven that the HFY were not invincible. The galaxy's most feared predators could be beaten by prey that refused to stay prey. The hunt was far from over. But for the first time since the aliens arrived, it was not clear who was going to win. And that uncertainty was killing the HFY faster than any human weapon ever could. 1 year after the invasion began, Earth had become something that had never existed in 3,000 years of HFY conquest. It was a hunting ground where the prey had become more dangerous than the predators. Commander Vexith stood in his private chambers aboard the flagship, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare and hunting. His forces were losing ground every day, not to superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but to something far more disturbing. The humans had learned to think like HFY. But worse than that, they had learned to think better than HFY. The latest intelligence report lay on his bio desk, its living surface pulsing with bioluminescent text. Hunting Party 77 had been assigned to clear out a human stronghold in what had once been called Paris. The mission should have been routine. 30 HFY warriors against maybe 100 humans, hiding in underground tunnels. The entire hunting party had vanished without sending a single distress signal. When a recovery team finally found the site 3 days later, they discovered something that chilled Vex to his core. The humans hadn't just killed the hunting party. They had displayed the bodies in a pattern that showed they understood HFY military protocols better than some of his own officers. The arrangement was a message written in the language of predator dominance. It said clearly and unmistakably, "We know who you are. We know how you think. We are better hunters than you." Vexith had seen many species fight back when the HFY came for them. Some had been brave. Some had been clever. Some had even won battles against his forces. But none had ever demonstrated that they understood HFY psychology well enough to wage psychological warfare against them. Dr. Sarah Chen crouched in the ruins of what had once been the Louvre Museum, studying the aftermath of the Paris operation. Her team had been documenting human tactical evolution for months, and what she saw here represented a new level of sophistication. The human team that had eliminated Hunting Party 77 had used classic HFY pack hunting techniques against the aliens themselves. They had divided into small groups, surrounded their prey, and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. But they had also added elements that no Kethvar would have thought of. They used the aliens' own sensory advantages against them, her research partner Dr. James Harrison observed, examining scorch marks on the tunnel walls. The Kethvar have incredible hearing and smell, so the humans created false scent trails and sound decoys that led them exactly where they wanted them to go. Sarah nodded as she studied video footage captured by hidden cameras. The human team had moved through the tunnels like ghosts, coordinating their attack through quantum-encrypted communications that the aliens couldn't detect or intercept. They had turned the underground into a three-dimensional maze where every route led to a kill zone. "But look at this," she said, pointing to the final arrangement of alien bodies. "This isn't just tactical superiority. This is art." The humans had arranged the defeated Kethvar according to their species' own rituals of dominance. It was a message that could only be understood by someone who had studied Kethvar culture deeply. The humans were telling their enemies that they not only could defeat them, but that they understood them completely. This level of psychological warfare was spreading throughout the global resistance. Human teams were no longer content to simply kill alien hunters. They were working to break the Kethvar psychologically, to destroy their confidence and their sense of identity as apex predators. Captain Marcus Rivera commanded one of the most successful hunting teams on the planet. His group, operating out of the ruins of New York, had eliminated over 200 Kethvar warriors in the past 6 months. But more importantly, they had pioneered techniques that were being copied by resistance cells worldwide. Rivera's specialty was what he called predator stalking. His team would identify individual Kethvar warriors and follow them for weeks, learning their habits, their routes, their personal weaknesses. They would leave subtle signs that they were being watched. A scratch on a wall here, a moved object there, just enough to let the alien know it was being hunted. The psychological effect was devastating. Kethvar warriors who had once moved through human cities with confident aggression began to show signs of paranoia and fear. They would jump at shadows, waste ammunition shooting at noises, and make tactical errors that human teams were ready to exploit. "The key is patience," Rivera explained to new recruits in the underground training facility. "The Kethvar are used to quick hunts against prey that panics. They don't know how to handle being stalked over long periods by patient predators." He activated a holographic display showing the psychological profile of a typical Kethvar warrior. Their entire identity is built around being dominant predators. When that identity is threatened, they don't have psychological tools to cope with it. They become confused, angry, and most importantly, sloppy. One of the recruits, a former Marine named Johnson, raised her hand. "What about their reinforcements? Our intel suggests they've sent messages back to their home fleet." Rivera's expression darkened. "That's why we need to work faster. We need to break them completely before help arrives. If we can destroy their morale thoroughly enough, even reinforcements won't be able to save this invasion." This was the race that humanity was running. They had maybe a year, possibly 2, before massive Kethvar reinforcements arrived. In that time, they needed to prove that Earth was not worth conquering, that humans were too dangerous to hunt. Dr. Chen had been working on biological warfare tailored specifically for the Kethvar. Their biotechnology was both a strength and a weakness. Because everything they used was alive, it could be infected, poisoned, or turned against them. "I've developed 3 different biological agents," she reported to the global resistance leadership during a secure video conference. The first attacks their bioships directly, causing system failures and making them uninhabitable. The second interferes with their personal bioarmor, making it unreliable in combat. The third is the most dangerous. It's a modified virus that affects their nervous systems. The resistance leaders listened carefully as Chen explained her work. They were all exhausted men and women who had been fighting an impossible war for over a year. But for the first time since the invasion began, they were starting to believe they might actually win. "What are the risks?" asked General Morrison, the former head of the European Defense Forces. "High," Chen admitted. "The biological agents are designed to be species-specific, but we're dealing with alien biology. There's a chance they could mutate and affect other life forms on Earth. Using them would be a desperate measure." "How desperate are we?" asked another leader. Rivera answered from his position in New York. "Desperate enough. Our intelligence suggests that the Kethvar home fleet is massive. If they send everything they have, we won't be able to resist conventionally. The decision was made to prepare the biological weapons but hold them in reserve. Humanity would continue to fight with conventional tactics and psychological warfare as long as possible. The bioweapons would be a last resort if conventional resistance failed. But even as the leaders made this decision, the conventional resistance was achieving successes that no one had thought possible when the invasion began. Human teams had learned to capture and operate HFY spacecraft. Small groups of pilots, many of them former military aviators, were flying alien bioships in combat against their former owners. The ships were difficult to control. They responded to biological commands that human nervous systems had to learn to generate, but the results were spectacular. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were winning battles in space above Earth's atmosphere. Commander Vexith watched in disbelief as human-piloted HFY fighters attacked one of his scout ships. The humans flew with a reckless creativity that his own pilots couldn't match. They used maneuvers that were tactically unsound according to HFY doctrine, but which worked precisely because they were unexpected. "How are they controlling our bioships?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, Commander. The humans appear to have learned to interface directly with our biotechnology. They are using our own vessels against us." This was the nightmare scenario that Vexith had feared since the first reports of human resistance. If the prey could use predator tools, the natural order of the hunt was completely destroyed. Worse, the humans were modifying captured HFY technology with their own innovations. They had created hybrid biomechanical systems that combined alien biotechnology with human engineering. The results were often superior to pure HFY systems. Sub-Commander Zalketh entered the command chamber with the latest casualty reports. Her scaled face showed the strain of months of unexpected warfare. "Commander, we've lost another 12 hunting parties this week. Morale among the warriors is problematic." "Explain," Vexith hissed. "Many are refusing hunting assignments. They claim the humans have made the planet's surface too dangerous for normal operations. Some are requesting transfers off-world. This was unprecedented in HFY military history. Warriors who had participated in the conquest of dozens of worlds were now afraid to fight against primitive humans. The psychological damage was spreading through his forces like a plague. "What about the human resistance? Are they showing any signs of weakening?" Zalketh's silence was answer enough. If anything, human resistance was getting stronger and more sophisticated every day. They had learned to coordinate operations across the entire planet, sharing intelligence and tactics in real time. They had mastered HFY technology and psychology. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to enjoy hunting their former hunters. "Commander," Zalketh said quietly, "some of the warriors are saying that we should withdraw from this system." The suggestion was blasphemous. In 3,000 years of expansion, the HFY had never retreated from a hunting ground. They conquered or they died trying. The idea of withdrawal was against everything their species believed about itself. But as Vexith looked at the tactical displays showing human-controlled territories spreading across the planet like an infection, he had to admit that traditional HFY doctrine was not working against these particular prey animals. On Earth's surface, human resistance had evolved far beyond anything the original planners had imagined. What had started as scattered groups of survivors hiding from alien hunters had become a planet-wide military force that was actively hunting the aliens. The transformation was most visible in the urban battlegrounds. Cities that had been devastated by the initial HFY attacks had been rebuilt as elaborate hunting grounds designed to trap and kill alien hunting parties. Every building, every street, every sewer tunnel had been modified to give humans tactical advantages. In London, the resistance had turned the underground system into a three-dimensional battlefield where humans could move unseen, while alien movements were tracked and predicted. HFY hunting parties that entered the city often found themselves surrounded and outnumbered before they realized they were in danger. In Tokyo, human engineers had combined alien biotechnology with advanced robotics to create autonomous hunter-killer systems that could track and eliminate HFY warriors without human oversight. The aliens were being hunted by their own technology turned against them. In New York, Rivera's team had established what they called hunting schools where experienced human predators taught newcomers how to track, stalk, and kill HFY warriors. The curriculum included alien psychology, biotechnology operation, and advanced combat tactics. But perhaps the most important development was psychological. Humans were no longer afraid of the Kethvar. A year of successful resistance had proven that the aliens could be beaten. More than that, it had proven that humans could become better hunters than their would-be conquerors. Dr. Chen had completed her analysis of captured Kethvar psychological profiles. What she found confirmed what field operatives had been reporting for months. The Kethvar are breaking down psychologically, she reported to the global leadership. Their entire culture is based on being apex predators. When that fundamental assumption is challenged, they don't have coping mechanisms. She displayed brain scans of captured Kethvar warriors, showing the progression of psychological deterioration over time in human captivity. They're developing what we would recognize as severe depression and anxiety disorders. Their sense of identity is completely dependent on their ability to dominate other species. When humans prove that they can be dominated instead, it destroys their psychological foundation. This information had strategic implications. If the Kethvar could be broken psychologically, they might withdraw from Earth voluntarily rather than face the humiliation of defeat by inferior prey. Human resistance leaders began planning operations specifically designed to maximize psychological damage to the alien forces. They would demonstrate not just that humans could fight back, but that humans were better predators than the Kethvar themselves. The message they wanted to send was clear. Earth was not a hunting ground for alien predators. It was a trap where predators came to die. As the first year of resistance ended and the second began, the situation had become completely reversed from what anyone had expected when the aliens first arrived. The Kethvar were no longer hunting humans. Humans were hunting Kethvar, and they were getting very good at it. Commander Vexith stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue and green world that should have been conquered long ago. Somewhere in the cities below, his warriors were hiding from human hunters. Somewhere in the tunnels and ruins, humans were planning their next attack against his forces. For the first time in his career, Vexith was beginning to understand what it felt like to be prey. And he did not like the feeling at all. 2 years had passed since the Kethvar invasion began, and Earth had become something unprecedented in the galaxy. It was a planet where the most feared predators in known space were afraid to leave their ships. Commander Vexith had not set foot on the planet's surface in 8 months. Neither had any of his senior officers. The surface of Earth had become what military strategists called a total denial zone, our territory so dangerous to the enemy that it could not be occupied, or even safely scouted. The humans had achieved this through a combination of superior tactics, psychological warfare, and something the Kethvar had never encountered before: genuine creativity in the art of hunting. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in what had once been the Pentagon, now converted into humanity's central command for xenobiology research. Around her, teams of scientists worked with captured alien technology that they had not only learned to operate, but to improve upon. Status report, she called to her lead researcher, Dr. James Harrison. We've successfully reverse-engineered 90% of their biotechnology, Harrison replied, not looking up from the living computer interface he was working with. More importantly, we've learned to modify it. Our hybrid systems are consistently outperforming pure Kethvar technology. This was the breakthrough that had changed everything. Human engineers and scientists had discovered that alien biotechnology could be enhanced with human innovations. The resulting hybrid systems were more capable than anything either species had created alone. Human-modified Kethvar weapons were more accurate and had longer range. Human-adapted alien sensors could detect Kethvar movements from greater distances. Most importantly, human-controlled bioships were faster and more maneuverable than their original versions. But the real advantage was strategic. The Kethvar designed their technology for hunting weaker prey. Humans were modifying that same technology for hunting the Kethvar themselves. Captain Marcus Rivera walked through the corridors of what had once been New York City Hall, now serving as the command center for North American hunting operations. The building hummed with activity as teams planned operations that would have been impossible 2 years earlier. "Sir," called Lieutenant Johnson, one of his most experienced hunters, "we have confirmation on the orbital patrol schedules. The Kethvar are following predictable patterns now." Rivera smiled grimly. This was exactly what he had been waiting for. The aliens had become so defensive that they were prioritizing safety over tactical effectiveness. Their orbital patrols followed regular schedules that could be predicted and exploited. "Prepare Hunter Team Alpha," he ordered. "We're going to space." This would be the first human-initiated attack on Kethvar orbital positions. For 2 years, humans had been limited to defensive operations on the planet's surface. Now they were ready to take the fight to the enemy's strongholds in space. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had attempted before. Using captured and modified Kethvar bioships, a team of human pilots would infiltrate the alien orbital fleet and capture one of their major vessels. If successful, it would prove that humans could threaten the Kethvar anywhere in the solar system. The bioship that would carry them into space was a hybrid creation that demonstrated how far human technology had advanced. The basic structure was a captured Kethvar scout vessel, but it had been extensively modified with human innovations. Human engineers had replaced the alien's simple bio-neural interface with a sophisticated quantum computer system that could process information faster than the original biological systems. They had enhanced the ship's bioarmor with human-developed materials that were lighter and stronger than the alien originals. Most importantly, they had modified the ship's stealth capabilities. The Kethvar bioships were naturally difficult to detect, but human modifications had made this particular vessel virtually invisible to alien sensors. Dr. Chen had provided the final piece of the puzzle, a biological weapon specifically designed to incapacitate Kethvar crew members without killing them. The humans wanted prisoners, not corpses. They needed intelligence about the alien home fleet and their plans for Earth. As Rivera's team prepared for launch, similar operations were being planned around the globe. Human resistance had evolved into something the Kethvar had never faced, a coordinated planetary military force capable of taking offensive action. In orbit above Earth, Subcommander Zalketh reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing despair. Her scouts were reporting human activities that made no sense according to everything the Kethvar knew about primitive species. The humans were not just surviving the invasion, they were thriving. Their population was actually growing in some areas as they consolidated into fortified cities that the Kethvar could not safely approach. Their technology was advancing rapidly as they mastered and improved upon captured alien equipment. Most disturbing of all, they were showing signs of preparing for offensive operations beyond their planet's surface. "Commander," she called to Vexth over the bioship's communication system, "I'm reading unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface. The humans appear to be activating some kind of launch system." Vexth's response was immediate and concerned. "Elaborate. Multiple locations are showing power buildups consistent with spacecraft launch preparations. Sir, I think they're planning to come after us." The idea was so alien to Kethvar thinking that it took Vexth several moments to process it. In 3,000 years of conquest, they had never faced prey that attempted to carry the fight beyond their home planet. The very concept violated everything the Kethvar understood about the natural order of predator and prey. But as he studied the sensor readings, Vexth had to accept the impossible. The humans were preparing to launch spacecraft. They were planning to hunt the Kethvar in space itself. Rivera's bioship launched from a hidden facility in the ruins of Colorado Springs. The launch was silent and nearly invisible. The hybrid craft rose through Earth's atmosphere like a living shadow, undetected by Kethvar sensors. As they approached orbital altitude, Rivera felt a mixture of excitement and terror. No human had been this far from Earth since the invasion began. But more than that, they were about to attempt something that no other species in the galaxy had ever successfully done: hunt the Kethvar in their own element. "Target acquired," reported his pilot, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, a former NASA astronaut who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. "Kethvar patrol vessel, bearing 27 Mark V. Single ship isolated from the main fleet. Perfect. They had chosen their target carefully. A scout ship operating alone, far enough from the main fleet that its disappearance might not be immediately noticed. Remember," Rivera told his team, "we need prisoners and intelligence. Dr. Chen's bioweapon should incapacitate the crew without permanent damage. Our job is to capture the ship and bring it back to Earth." The attack was swift and precise. The hybrid bioship approached the Kethvar scout from its sensor blind spot, using stealth modifications that made it invisible until it was too late for the aliens to react. Dr. Chen's biological weapon worked exactly as designed. Released into the target ship's atmosphere, It quickly incapacitated the Kethvar crew without triggering their ship's self-destruct systems. Within an hour, Rivera's team had captured their first Kethvar spacecraft in orbit. More importantly, they had proven that humans could successfully hunt the aliens anywhere in the solar system. The captured scout ship provided intelligence that changed everything. The ship's biocomputer contained detailed information about the Kethvar home fleet, including the disturbing news that massive reinforcements were already en route to Earth. But the intelligence also revealed something else. The Kethvar were losing ships throughout their empire. The reports from Earth had spread through their military hierarchy, and other species they had been hunting were beginning to fight back using human tactics. Dr. Harrison studied the captured data with growing excitement. "Sarah, look at this. The Kethvar aren't just having problems here. Reports from other systems show increasing resistance among species they've been hunting for years." Chen reviewed the intelligence with amazement. "They're copying our methods. Other species are learning from what we've done here and applying it to their own situations." This was an unexpected development that could change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. If the Kethvar Empire was facing resistance on multiple fronts, it would limit their ability to concentrate forces against Earth. But it also meant that humanity had become something more than just another species fighting for survival. They had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide rebellion against the Kethvar. The success of Rivera's orbital mission led to a rapid expansion of human space operations. Within weeks, human-piloted hybrid spacecraft were conducting regular raids against Kethvar orbital positions. The aliens found themselves under attack in the one place they had considered safe. Commander Vexith was forced to withdraw his fleet to a higher orbit and implement defensive formations that severely limited their operational effectiveness. For the first time in Kethvar military history, they were conducting purely defensive operations against primitive prey. The psychological impact on his forces was catastrophic. Kethvar warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were now afraid to approach a single planet. Morale had collapsed to the point where some crews were requesting transfers to other hunting expeditions, rather than continue fighting humans. "Commander," Zalketh reported during their daily briefing, "I've received confirmation that the home fleet has dispatched reinforcements. A full conquest armada is en route to our position." Vexith felt a mixture of relief and shame. Relief that he would finally have the forces necessary to crush human resistance. Shame that he had been the first Kethvar commander in history to require such massive reinforcements to subdue a single species. "Estimated arrival time?" 6 months, Commander. The armada includes over 200 bioships and 50,000 warriors, more than enough to sterilize the entire planet if necessary. The news of incoming reinforcements spread quickly through human intelligence networks. Dr. Chen and her research teams analyzed the captured data to understand exactly what humanity would be facing. The numbers were overwhelming. The reinforcement fleet was larger than the entire combined military forces that Earth had possessed before the invasion. Even with all their technological advances and tactical innovations, humanity could not hope to defeat such a massive force in conventional battle. But Captain Rivera had a different idea. "We don't fight them," he explained to the global resistance leadership during an emergency conference. "We make them not want to fight us." Rivera's plan was audacious and terrifying in its implications. Instead of waiting for the reinforcements to arrive, humanity would take the fight to the Kethvar home system. They would use captured and modified bioships to strike at the heart of the alien empire. "It's a suicide mission," protested General Morrison. "No," Rivera replied, "it's a message. We show them that nowhere in the galaxy is safe from us. We prove that hunting humans means becoming hunted ourselves no matter where they go." Dr. Chen had been working on modifications that would make such a mission possible. Using captured Kethvar navigation data, human engineers had figured out how to modify bioships for faster-than-light travel. The resulting hybrid vessels could reach the Kethvar home system within weeks. "The bioweapons I've developed can be deployed on a massive scale," she explained. "We don't need to destroy their entire civilization. We just need to make them understand that continuing to hunt humans will result in the collapse of their empire." The plan that emerged was unprecedented in its scope and daring. A fleet of human-modified bioships would travel to the Kethvar home system and demonstrate that humanity could strike at the heart of their empire. They would prove that humans were not prey to be hunted, but predators capable of hunting their hunters across the galaxy. As preparations began for the most dangerous mission in human history, word of the plan spread through the resistance networks. Volunteers came forward from every nation on Earth. They were willing to travel across the galaxy to ensure that their species would never again be hunted by alien predators. The message they planned to deliver to the Kethvar was simple and terrifying. Earth was not a hunting ground. It was the home of hunters who would follow their prey anywhere in the galaxy. Commander Vex received the intercepted human communications with disbelief that quickly turned to horror. The humans were planning to attack the Kethvar homeworld itself. The idea was so insane, so contrary to every natural law of predator and prey, that his mind initially refused to accept it. But as he studied the intelligence reports, he realized that the humans were serious. They had the technology, the knowledge, and apparently the will to carry out such an attack. For the first time in his long career, Vex began to understand that his species might have made a terrible mistake when they chose to hunt humanity. The prey had not just learned to fight back. They had learned to become apex predators themselves. And now they were coming for the hunters. 3 years after the Kethvar invasion began, Captain Marcus Rivera stood on the bridge of the hybrid bioship Revenge, watching the stars shift from points of light to streaming lines as they entered faster-than-light travel. Behind him, a fleet of 27 human-modified vessels followed, the same course toward the heart of the Kethvar Empire. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity remained a single species fighting for survival on one world, or became something new, the galaxy's apex predator. The journey to the Kethvar home system took 18 days. During that time, Rivera's fleet remained in constant communication with Earth, sharing intelligence and coordinating their attack with defensive preparations back home. The massive Kethvar reinforcement fleet was still 3 months away from Earth, giving humanity a narrow window to strike first. Dr. Sarah Chen worked constantly during the journey, finalizing the biological weapons that would make their mission possible. She had created something unprecedented, a virus specifically designed to attack Kethvar biotechnology. It would spread through their living ships and weapons, making them unreliable and eventually unusable. The beauty of it, she explained to Rivera, is that it doesn't kill them outright. It just makes it impossible for them to function as a military force. Their ships will fail, their weapons will malfunction, their armor will stop working. They'll be helpless. But the virus was only part of the plan. The real goal was psychological. Humanity wanted to prove to the Kethvar that their empire was vulnerable, that their homeworlds could be reached and attacked by the very prey they had been hunting. The Kethvar home system contained 12 planets, 3 of which supported the vast biocities where their species had evolved. These worlds had never been attacked by another species. For 3,000 years, they had been the untouchable heart of a galactic empire built on hunting and conquest. When Rivera's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, they found themselves facing defensive forces that had been designed to repel invasion fleets, not small groups of modified bioships that registered as friendly vessels on Kethvar sensors. "We're invisible to them," reported Lieutenant Kim from the pilot's station. "Their own sensors think we're part of their fleet." This was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. The Kethvar had never faced an enemy that could use their own technology against them. Their defensive systems were not designed to detect modified bioships piloted by former prey species. The attack began simultaneously on all 3 homeworlds. Human bioships, indistinguishable from Kethvar vessels to enemy sensors, penetrated the orbital defenses and began deploying Dr. Chen's biological weapons into the atmosphere. The virus spread quickly through the living infrastructure of the Kethvar cities. Bio-buildings began to malfunction. Transportation systems failed. Communication networks collapsed. Within hours, the technological foundation of Kethvar civilization was crumbling. But Rivera's mission went beyond biological warfare. He wanted to deliver a message that would end the Kethvar threat to Earth forever. On the primary homeworld, Rivera's team captured the Grand Hunting Hall, the ceremonial center where the Kethvar had displayed trophies from 3,000 years of conquest. The hall contained artifacts from hundreds of extinct species, each one representing a successful hunt that had ended with the complete destruction of an intelligent civilization. Standing in the center of the hall, surrounded by the remains of countless extinct species, Rivera activated a transmission that would be broadcast throughout the Kethvar Empire. "My name is Marcus Rivera," he began, and I represent the human species of Earth. You came to our world believing we were prey to be hunted. You were wrong. The transmission showed images of the chaos spreading through the Kethvar homeworlds as their biotechnology failed. It displayed the human fleet operating freely in the heart of their supposedly invulnerable empire. For 3,000 years, you have hunted intelligent species to extinction. You believed you were apex predators, that no prey could threaten you. Today we prove that you were wrong about that too. Rivera gestured to the trophies surrounding him. Every species represented in this hall was destroyed because they could not adapt quickly enough to survive your hunts. But humans are different. We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to win. The transmission continued with footage from Earth showing human resistance operations. Kethvar warriors fleeing from human hunting teams. Alien bioships being piloted by human crews. The systematic reversal of the invasion that had turned the predators into prey. We have learned to hunt you on your own world, using your own weapons, in your own ships. We have proven that there is nowhere in the galaxy you can go where we cannot follow. Nowhere you can hide where we cannot find you. Rivera paused, letting the implications sink in before delivering his ultimatum. You have two choices. You can withdraw from Earth immediately and never return, or you can face the complete destruction of your empire. We have shown you that we can reach your homeworlds. We have shown you that we can cripple your technology. If you force us to, we will show you that we can hunt your species to extinction just as you have hunted others. The transmission ended with a final image, humans and representatives of other species that the Kethvar had been hunting, standing together in the grand hunting hall. The message was clear. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide alliance against Kethvar expansion. Commander Vexth received the transmission aboard his flagship in Earth orbit. As he watched human forces operating freely on the Kethvar homeworlds, he felt something he had never experienced before: complete helplessness. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned the greatest hunters in the galaxy into hunted animals cowering in their own homes. They had proven that no species, no matter how advanced or dangerous, was immune to becoming prey if they chose the wrong target. Status report from the homeworlds, he requested, though he already knew what the answer would be. Complete system failure, Commander, Zalketh reported. The biological weapon the humans deployed has infected our entire biotechnological infrastructure. Our ships are failing, our cities are going dark, our weapons are becoming inoperative. And the reinforcement fleet? They've received the human transmission. The Admiralty is reconsidering their orders. Vexth understood. The Kethvar High Command was facing the collapse of their home worlds and the possible extinction of their species. Continuing the hunt for one troublesome planet was no longer a priority. Commander, Zalketh continued quietly, I'm receiving surrender requests from hunting fleets throughout the Empire. The humans have shared their biological weapon with other species. Kethvar forces are being attacked everywhere. This was the end of everything the Kethvar had built over 3 millennia. Their empire of conquest was crumbling as their former prey turned their own tactics against them. On Earth, Dr. Chen monitored the global communications networks as reports came in from across the galaxy. Species that had been hunted by the Kethvar for generations were suddenly free, their oppressors fleeing in broken bioships that could barely function. It's working, she reported to the global resistance leadership. The Kethvar Empire is collapsing. Their fleets are retreating from dozens of systems. But Chen knew that the real victory was not just the defeat of one predatory species. Humanity had proven something that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Intelligence and adaptability could triumph over any amount of natural or artificial predatory advantage. The species that had thought they were the ultimate hunters had been taught that there was always something higher on the food chain. Rivera's fleet returned to Earth 6 weeks later, their mission accomplished beyond anyone's expectations. They had not just defended their home world. They had ended a 3,000-year reign of terror that had consumed hundreds of intelligent species. The Kethvar reinforcement fleet never arrived at Earth. Instead, it was recalled to help with the crisis on the homeworlds. Within months, the remaining Kethvar forces had withdrawn from Earth orbit entirely, leaving behind only scattered groups of individuals who requested asylum rather than return to their collapsing empire. But humanity's role in the galaxy was just beginning. As word of their victory spread, representatives from dozens of species made contact with Earth. Some were former Kethvar prey seeking alliance and protection. Others were potential threats that wanted to test themselves against the species that had defeated the galaxy's apex predators. Dr. Chen found herself leading a new kind of research program, studying not just how to defend against alien threats, but how to prevent the rise of another species like the Kethvar. Her work focused on creating technologies and strategies that could be shared with peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The goal, she explained to the newly formed Galactic Defense Council, is to make sure that no species ever again faces what we faced when the Kethvar arrived. We want to create a galaxy where intelligence and cooperation triumph over predation and conquest. Captain Rivera, now promoted to Admiral, commanded Earth's first interstellar defense fleet. His ships patrolled the galaxy not as conquerors but as protectors, ensuring that species like the Kethvar could never again rise to threaten peaceful civilizations. The irony was not lost on him. Humanity had become the galaxy's apex predator by refusing to think like predators. They had won by protecting others rather than hunting them, by cooperating rather than conquering. 5 years after the invasion began, Earth hosted the first Galactic Peace Conference attended by representatives from over 200 species. The goal was to establish principles that would prevent future wars of extinction and create a framework for peaceful contact between species. The conference was held in the ruins of the Grand Hunting Hall, now rebuilt as the memorial to extinct species. Each of the species that the Kethvar had destroyed was remembered with a monument, and representatives of surviving Kethvar populations participated in the ceremonies. Former Commander Vex, now serving as a representative of the reformed Kethvar remnant, spoke to the assembly about the lessons his species had learned. "We believed that strength meant the ability to destroy others," he said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine remorse. "The humans taught us that true strength means the ability to protect others. We spent 3,000 years proving we could hunt. They spent 3 years proving they could save." The conference established the Galactic Protection Protocols, a set of principles that would govern contact between species and provide frameworks for mutual defense. Humanity took the lead in implementing these protocols, but the goal was to create a system that no single species could dominate. Dr. Chen, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiologist, presented the final report of the conference to the assembled delegates. "The Kethvar invasion taught us that the galaxy can be a dangerous place," she said. "But it also taught us that intelligence, cooperation, and the refusal to give up can overcome any threat. We humans were prey for exactly 3 years. We have chosen to spend the rest of our existence ensuring that no other species has to experience what we experienced." The audience, representing hundreds of worlds and thousands of years of galactic history, rose in unanimous applause. As the conference ended and delegates returned to their home worlds, Rivera stood on the balcony of the rebuilt memorial, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the galaxy, not hunting for prey but protecting species that needed protection. The great hunt was over. The Kethvar had learned that there were no easy prey in a galaxy, where intelligence and determination could overcome any advantage. Humanity had learned that their greatest strength was not their ability to destroy their enemies, but their willingness to protect their friends. In the end, the hunters had become the hunted, the prey had become the protectors, and the galaxy had become a safer place for intelligence to flourish. The stars shined down on a galaxy where the age of predators was ending, and the age of guardians had begun. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet, whose inhabitants had refused to accept their fate as prey, and had instead chosen to become the shepherds of galactic peace. The hunt was over. The protection had begun, and humanity would never let another species face extinction alone.
The battle alarms blared throughout the UES Retribution as Captain James Walker gripped the arms of his command chair. Red emergency lights pulsed across the bridge, illuminating the faces of his crew. Their expressions showed a mix of fear and determination as enemy fire rocked the massive warship. "Shields down to 30%, shouted Officer Lisa Green from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel, trying to reroute power from non-essential systems. "The Dominion cruisers are moving to surround us, reported Mark Taylor, the tactical officer. His voice remained steady, but sweat beaded on his forehead. 3 more ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Walker nodded grimly. The Retribution, pride of the Earth fleet, was among humanity's most advanced warships. Even so, it was outmatched against this many Dominion vessels. The alien ships looked like giant dark metal insects against the backdrop of stars, their hulls covered with strange protrusions that glowed with purple energy. "Engineering, I need more power to the main guns," Walker ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Taylor, focus fire on the lead cruiser. We need to punch a hole in their formation." The ship trembled as another blast struck its hull. A console at the rear of the bridge exploded in a shower of sparks, sending a crew member tumbling to the floor. Two others rushed to drag the injured sailor to safety. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the lead Dominion vessel," said Emma Ross, the ship's science officer. Her eyes widened as she studied her screens. "It's like nothing I've seen before. They're charging some kind of weapon." Walker stood up, moving to look over Ross's shoulder at the readings. He'd been fighting the Dominion for 8 years, and in that time, human intelligence had built fairly accurate profiles of their weapon systems. This was something new. "All power to forward shields," he ordered. "Prepare tow." His words were cut short as a blinding purple beam lanced out from the alien flagship, striking the Retribution dead center. The lights flickered and died. For 3 terrifying seconds, everything went silent. Then the emergency systems kicked in, bringing dim lighting back to the bridge. "Damage report," Walker called out. "Sir, that wasn't a normal weapon," Ross said, her voice shaking slightly. "Our sensors indicate some kind of spatial distortion forming around the ship. We're being pulled toward it." Outside the forward view screen, Walker could see it. A swirling vortex of darkness speckled with points of light, like a miniature galaxy forming right in front of them. The stars around them seemed to stretch and distort. "Full reverse thrust," he ordered. "Get us out of here." Engineer John Miller's voice came over the comms, strained and breaking up. "Engines at maximum, Captain, but we're barely holding position. Whatever that thing is, it's got us in some kind of gravitational lock." Walker turned to his communications officer. "Send an emergency broadcast to Fleet Command. Include all sensor data on this anomaly." "Transmitting now, sir," replied Officer Robert Bell. His face fell as he checked his readouts. "No confirmation of receipt. The distortion field may be blocking our signals." The pull grew stronger. The Retribution groaned as metal strained against forces it was never designed to withstand. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. "Sir," said Taylor quietly, "the Dominion ships are retreating. They're moving away at maximum speed." That was when Walker knew they were truly in danger. If the Dominion, who had shown nothing but hatred for humans since first contact, were running from their own weapon, then whatever was happening was beyond even their control. "All hands, brace for impact," Walker announced shipwide. "This is not a drill. I repeat, all hands brace for impact." The vortex grew larger, consuming the view from every window. Strange lights danced within its depths, and for a brief moment, several crew members swore they could see shapes moving within. Massive shadows that defied description. "Captain," Ross whispered, "the readings are off the charts. This isn't just spatial distortion. It's like we're being pulled into another dimension entirely." Walker returned to his command chair, sitting down firmly as the ship lurched forward. "Everyone hold tight. Whatever happens, we face it together." Lieutenant Commander Thomas Reed, the ship's executive officer and Walker's closest friend, moved to stand beside the captain's chair. "Orders, sir." Walker looked up at Reed, a grim smile on his face. "If we make it through this, make sure everyone knows we didn't go down without a fight. If we don't—" Reed nodded, understanding the unspoken command. If they somehow survived, their first priority would be finding a way home. The Retribution shuddered one last time before being fully engulfed by the swirling vortex. The view screen showed nothing but turbulent energy patterns surrounding them, like being caught inside a storm made of light and darkness. Several crew members closed their eyes, certain these were their final moments. And then, in an instant, everything went quiet. The turbulence stopped. The view screen showed only stars, but not in any configuration they recognized. "Where are we?" Walker asked, breaking the stunned silence. Ross worked frantically at her station. "Unknown, sir. None of these star patterns match our charts. And—" she hesitated, checking her readings again. "There's something else. The spectral analysis of the stars is different, subtly shifted. It's as if—" "As if what, Officer Ross?" Walker prompted. "As if we're not in our universe anymore, sir." 3 days later, in Earth Fleet Headquarters on Luna Base, Admiral William Grant stared at the holographic display showing the last known position of the UES Retribution. The ship's signal had disappeared completely during what was supposed to be a routine patrol along the border sectors. "Play it again," he ordered. His aide, Major Helen Black, nodded and restarted the recording. The grainy footage showed the Retribution engaged with several Dominion ships. There was a flash of purple light. And then, nothing. Just empty space where a warship carrying 347 crew members had been moments before. "No debris field," Grant muttered. "No radiation signature. Nothing to indicate the ship was destroyed." "The Dominion are claiming they had nothing to do with it," Black said. "According to their official statement, they were testing a new propulsion system that malfunctioned." Grant snorted. "And we're supposed to believe that?" "Intelligence doesn't think they're lying, sir. Our spies report they seem genuinely concerned about whatever happened. They've pulled back from that entire sector." The Admiral rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of having to inform 347 families that their loved ones were missing in action. "Sir," Black continued hesitantly, "Lieutenant Commander Reed has requested a transfer to the investigation team." Grant raised an eyebrow. "Reed? He wasn't on the Retribution." "No, sir. He was scheduled to ship out next week after completing his advanced tactical training. He and Captain Walker were academy roommates." The Admiral considered this. "Approve the transfer. We need our best people on this." As Black left to process the paperwork, Grant turned back to the hologram. Something about this didn't add up. The Dominion were ruthless, but they weren't known for developing weapons that made ships simply vanish. And their retreat from the sector suggested even they were afraid of what they'd encountered. "Where are you, Retribution?" he whispered to the empty air. "And what the hell happened out there?" Thomas Reed stood in his small apartment, staring at a framed photo of himself and James Walker from their academy days. They were both smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, the earth shining blue and beautiful in the sky above the lunar campus behind them. "I don't believe you're dead, Jim," he said to the photo. "And I'm going to find out what happened to you and your crew. Whatever it takes." His datapad pinged with a notification. His transfer had been approved. In 3 days, he would join the team investigating the Retribution's disappearance. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Outside his window, stars filled the night sky. Somewhere out there, Reed believed, the Retribution was still intact. And someday, somehow, it would return home. He didn't yet know how right he was, or how much he would come to regret that wish. 50 years passed. The war with the Dominion settled into an uneasy stalemate. Both sides, exhausted by decades of fighting, maintained heavily fortified borders, but rarely engaged in direct combat anymore. Admiral Thomas Reed, now in his 70s with silver hair and deep lines etched into his face, sat in his office on Earth's orbital defense station. Despite his age, his eyes remained sharp and alert as he reviewed the daily security reports. After 45 years of searching, he had never given up hope of finding the Retribution and his friend James Walker. The urgent chime from his computer interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral Reed, sir," came the voice of his aide, Lieutenant David Brown. "We're detecting an unknown ship approaching Earth's defensive perimeter. It just appeared on our scanners." Reed frowned. "Dominion?" "No, sir. It doesn't match any known configuration, and it's massive. at least 3 times the size of our largest battleship. Alert status, Reed ordered, rising quickly from his chair. I'll be at command in 2 minutes. As Reed hurried through the station corridors, emergency lights began to flash. The station's AI announced in a calm voice, "All personnel to battle stations. Unknown vessel approaching." This is not a drill. The command center was a flurry of activity when Reed arrived. Officers rushed between stations, and the main view screen showed a distant object moving toward Earth. The ship was unlike anything Reed had ever seen, elongated and dark, with strange geometric patterns glowing along its hull. "What's its approach vector?" Reed asked as he took his position. "That's the strange part, sir," replied Commander Anna Wilson, the station's tactical officer. "It's not trying to avoid our defense grid. It's heading straight for us, but making no aggressive moves." "Have we tried hailing it?" "Yes, sir. No response so far." Reed studied the view screen. Something about the ship's central section seemed vaguely familiar, though it was mostly obscured by layers of unfamiliar technology. "Magnify the center portion of that vessel," he ordered. The screen zoomed in, focusing on what appeared to be the core of the strange ship. Reed's heart nearly stopped. Though partly hidden beneath alien additions, he could make out the unmistakable lines of a human-built warship, and not just any warship. That's the Retribution," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Sir." Wilson looked at him in confusion. Before Reed could explain, Lieutenant Brown called out, "Admiral, we're being hailed. The signal is coming from the unknown vessel, but..." He paused, checking his readings. "It's using an old Earth Fleet emergency frequency, one that hasn't been in use for decades." "Put it through," Reed ordered, his mouth suddenly dry. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared that made several officers gasp. It was an older man with a neatly trimmed white beard. His uniform was recognizable as Earth Fleet, but modified with unfamiliar elements. Most striking were his eyes, cold and hard, as if they had witnessed things beyond human understanding. "This is Captain James Walker of the UES Retribution, requesting permission to approach Earth," the man said, his voice gravelly but strong. Reed stepped forward, hardly able to believe what he was seeing. "Jim, is that really you?" Walker's expression softened slightly, the first hint of humanity breaking through his stern demeanor. "Tom, you got old, my friend." "So did you," Reed replied automatically, though in truth, Walker looked younger than he should have after 50 years. "Where have you been? What happened to your ship?" "It's a long story," Walker said, "one I'd prefer to tell in person. But first, I need your help convincing your defense forces not to shoot us down. My ship has changed, and I understand how threatening it must appear." Reed turned to Commander Wilson. "Stand down to alert level 2. Inform Earth Defense Command that I'm vouching personally for this vessel." "Sir," Wilson objected, "regulations require." "I know the regulations, Commander," Reed cut her off. "I wrote half of them. This is my call. That ship out there is the Retribution. It disappeared 50 years ago, and now it's returned. I need to know why." Wilson nodded reluctantly and began issuing the necessary orders. Reed turned back to the screen. "Jim, I'm sending coordinates for a holding position near the station. We'll dispatch a shuttle to bring you aboard." "No need," Walker replied. "We have our own transportation methods now. Prepare for our arrival in 10 minutes." The transmission ended abruptly. "Sir," Brown said nervously, "that ship is still over 100,000 kilometers away. No shuttle could cover that distance in 10 minutes. Reed simply nodded. Whatever happened to them out there changed them. Be prepared for anything. Exactly 10 minutes later, the command center's main doors slid open. Captain James Walker walked in, flanked by 2 officers Reed didn't recognize. They wore modified Earth Fleet uniforms with strange symbols embroidered on their sleeves. The entire room fell silent as Walker approached Reed. Up close, the changes in his old friend were even more apparent. Walker moved with unnatural precision, and faint lines of light occasionally pulsed beneath his skin. "Tom," Walker said, extending his hand. "It's good to see you." Reed hesitated only briefly before shaking it. The hand felt human enough, but slightly too cool. 50 years, Jim. We thought you were dead." "For us, it's been only 3 years," Walker replied. "Time works differently where we were taken." "And where was that exactly?" Walker glanced around the command center, his gaze lingering on the various officers watching them. "Somewhere humans were never meant to go. A place between dimensions, where the normal laws of physics don't apply." He stepped closer to Reed, lowering his voice. "We encountered things there, Tom. Ancient things, terrible and wonderful. They changed us, changed the ship. Are you even still human?" Reed asked quietly. Walker smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mostly. But we've learned things, seen things. The Dominion is nothing compared to what's out there." "Is that why you've returned? To warn us?" "Partly." Walker nodded. "But also because Earth is in danger. There's something coming, Tom. Something that makes the war with the Dominion look like a children's game." Reed studied his friend's face, searching for any trace of the man he once knew. There was familiarity there, but also something alien, a coldness that hadn't been there before. "What happened to you out there, Jim?" he asked softly. Walker's expression darkened. "We were hunted, studied, taken apart, and put back together. And then we learned how to fight back." He placed a hand on Reed's shoulder. "I need you to trust me. Will you help me convince Earth's leaders to listen?" "I'll try," Reed promised, though uncertainty gnawed at him. "But they'll have questions. Many questions." "Of course they will," Walker replied. "But time is short. The Harvesters have already found this dimension, and they're coming." "The Harvesters." Walker's eyes grew distant, as if seeing something beyond the room. "They consume everything, Tom. Worlds, species, knowledge. And they're very, very hungry." Around them, the command center had gone deathly quiet as everyone strained to hear their conversation. "We should take this somewhere private," Reed suggested. Walker nodded. "Lead the way, old friend. We have much to discuss." As they left the command center, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that while the retribution had indeed returned, the James Walker he had known was still lost somewhere in the depths of space, replaced by something that wore his face but carried the cold rage of a being that had endured horrors beyond human comprehension. And Earth would soon learn just how angry the lost warship truly was. The meeting room in Earth's central government building was filled with the most powerful military and political leaders of humanity. They sat around a large oval table, their faces tense as they waited for Captain Walker to begin. Admiral Reed sat beside his old friend, still unsure what to make of the changed man. Walker stood at the head of the table, his posture unnaturally perfect. Behind him, a holographic display showed the transformed Retribution in orbit. "Thank you for agreeing to hear me," Walker began, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to believe, but everything I say is true." He pressed a small device on his wrist, and the hologram changed to show a swirling vortex of energy. 50 years ago, by your time, the Retribution was pulled into what we now know was a dimensional gateway. The Dominion didn't create it deliberately. They were experimenting with technology they didn't understand, technology they had found, not built. General Peter Davis, the head of Earth's defense forces, leaned forward. "Found. From where?" "From the Harvesters," Walker replied. "Or more accurately, from one of the civilizations the Harvesters had already consumed." Walker changed the hologram again. It now showed a massive machine-like structure, part living organism, part technology. It resembled a city-sized spider with countless mechanical appendages. "This is a Harvester," he explained. "They are an ancient machine intelligence that travels between dimensions, seeking out advanced civilizations. They don't just destroy these civilizations, they absorb them. Their knowledge, their technology, their very essence. President Maria Ortiz, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair, shook her head. Captain Walker, these claims are extraordinary. Do you have any proof beyond these images? Walker smiled thinly. The proof is my ship, Madam President. The technology now integrated with the Retribution is beyond anything humans or the Dominion could create. But if you need more convincing. He nodded to one of his officers who had accompanied him. The woman, Lieutenant Jane Porter, stepped forward and placed a small cube on the table. The cube floated into the air, expanded, and projected a three-dimensional record of the Retribution's journey. The leaders watched in stunned silence as they saw the ship being pulled through the dimensional gateway, emerging into a strange realm where physics seemed to work differently. Colors existed that had no names in human language. Structures floated that seemed to bend in impossible ways. For us, only 3 years passed. Walker continued as the recording played. We were found by survivors, refugees from dozens of civilizations that had escaped the harvesters. They had formed a hidden colony in the space between dimensions. The hologram showed alien beings of various forms approaching the damaged Retribution, helping to repair it. They recognized our ship as primitive, but they saw potential in us. Humans adapt quickly, they said. We learn fast. And most importantly, we still had a home to return to, a home they could help us save. Walker paused, his eyes scanning the room. The refugees helped us understand what the harvesters truly are and how they operate. The harvesters never attack a civilization at its peak. They wait until it weakens itself, usually through war. Admiral Reed felt a chill run down his spine. The war with the Dominion. Walker nodded. Exactly, Tom. The harvesters have been manipulating both humans and the Dominion for decades. They planted that technology for the Dominion to find, knowing they would try to use it. They've been pushing both our civilizations toward mutual destruction. General Davis stood up angrily. That's absurd. Are you suggesting our entire conflict with the Dominion is some puppet show for these harvesters? Not entirely, Walker replied calmly. The initial conflicts were genuine. But the harvesters found our dimension about 60 years ago and have been subtly influencing events ever since. They're patient predators. They'll wait centuries if necessary. He changed the hologram again, showing a star map of human and Dominion space. Several points of light pulsed red. These are locations where dimensional disturbances similar to the one that took my ship have been detected over the past 5 years. The harvesters are preparing invasion points. President Ortiz studied the map carefully. If what you say is true, Captain, why would these refugee aliens help you? What do they gain? Revenge, Walker said simply, and hope. The harvesters have destroyed thousands of civilizations across countless dimensions, but they've never been stopped. The refugees believe we might be the first to do it. If humans and the Dominion work together. Laughter erupted from several people around the table. Work with the Dominion, General Davis scoffed. After 50 years of war, that's impossible. Walker's face hardened. Nothing is impossible, General. My crew and I are living proof of that. Speaking of your crew, said Defense Minister Alan Wright, they've all undergone these same changes as you. We were enhanced, Walker corrected. The refugees helped us integrate with technologies that would allow us to survive dimensional travel and combat the harvesters. We're still human, but improved. Improved how? Exactly? Asked Reed, speaking up for the first time. Walker hesitated before answering. Enhanced neural processing, improved cellular regeneration, integration with the ship's systems. We can control the Retribution with our thoughts now. It's part of us. And we're part of it. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. And the anger? Reed asked quietly. Walker looked at him sharply. What do you mean? Your ship, Reed explained. When our sensors first detected it, there were energy patterns consistent with weapons being primed. And your eyes, Jim, they're different. Colder. Walker was silent for a moment. We've seen things that would break most humans, Tom. We've fought battles you can't imagine. And yes, we're angry. Angry at what was taken from us. Angry at what the harvesters have done to countless innocent civilizations. He looked around the room, his gaze intense. But our anger is controlled, focused. It drives us to prevent what happened to the refugees from happening to Earth. President Ortiz stood up. Captain Walker, we need time to discuss this and verify what we can of your claims. Walker nodded. I understand, Madam President, but don't take too long. The harvesters are already moving. Their first attacks will target remote outposts, testing our defenses, studying our responses. And what do you propose we do? General Davis asked, his tone still skeptical but less hostile. Contact the Dominion, Walker replied without hesitation. Show them what I've shown you. They're being hunted too, even if they don't realize it yet. They'd never believe us, Minister Wright said. They'd think it was a trap. Walker smiled grimly. Then we'll have to convince them. The retribution has been modified to travel between dimensions. We can take representatives to see the refugee colony, to witness the truth firsthand. Is that safe? Reed asked. No, Walker admitted, but it's necessary. The future of both our species depends on it. As the meeting continued, Reed watched his old friend carefully. He could still see traces of the James Walker he had known. The determination, the strategic mind, the loyalty to humanity. But there was something else there too, something alien and dangerous. The retribution had returned, but it had brought more than warnings and advanced technology. It had brought a cold fury born from witnessing horrors beyond human comprehension. Reed only hoped that fury would be directed at the right targets, because he had seen the recordings of the enhanced retribution in action. And the thought of that ship, that angry ship, turning against Earth was too terrible to contemplate. We'll need proof, President Ortiz was saying. Something concrete to take to the Dominion. Walker nodded. Then let me show you what the harvesters are truly capable of. The retribution intercepted a probe they sent ahead of their main force. We have it contained aboard our ship. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever Walker had brought back with him, he suspected humanity wasn't ready for it. But ready or not, the war for survival had already begun. 3 days after Captain Walker's shocking presentation to Earth's leaders, the first attack came. A small human mining colony on the edge of the solar system went silent. All communication stopped without warning. The retribution was the first to respond, reaching the colony in minutes using its new dimension-shifting technology. What they found confirmed Walker's worst fears. Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the Valiant, Earth's newest battleship, watching the recorded footage Walker had sent back. The mining colony was simply gone. Where a thriving outpost with 5,000 people had stood, there was now only a perfectly circular hole in the asteroid's surface. Nothing remained, not even debris. This is exactly how the harvesters begin, Walker's voice explained over the recording. They consume everything, people, buildings, even the raw materials. Nothing is wasted. Reed turned to General Davis, who had insisted on coming aboard the Valiant to see the evidence firsthand. Still think Captain Walker is lying, General. Davis's face was ashen. 5,000 people, just gone. And this is just the beginning, Reed said grimly. Walker warned us they would start with remote outposts. The communication officer interrupted them. Admiral, we're receiving an urgent message from Dominion Space. It's on an open frequency. Reed and Davis exchanged surprised looks. The Dominion never used open channels where humans could listen. Put it through, Reed ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a Dominion commander. The alien's gray, ridged face looked strangely vulnerable, its normally hostile yellow eyes wide with what Reed recognized as fear. This message is for all human military forces, the Dominion commander said, its translator converting the clicks and hisses of its native language into English. Our outpost on Krell 7 has been attacked by an unknown force. The entire station has vanished without trace. We have detected similar energy signatures near 3 other Dominion worlds. The alien paused, clearly struggling with its next words. We request information. Have human territories experienced similar attacks? Before Reed could respond, another communication came through. This one from the Retribution. Admiral, Walker said, his face appearing on a split screen beside the Dominion commander. The Harvesters have begun their invasion. They're targeting both human and Dominion outposts simultaneously, just as I predicted. This is our chance. Reed nodded, understanding immediately. Open a direct channel to the Dominion commander, he told his communications officer. Once connected, Reed addressed the alien directly. Dominion commander, I am Admiral Thomas Reed of Earth Fleet. We have also experienced an attack identical to what you described. We believe we know what's responsible. The Dominion commander's eyes narrowed. Explain. It would be better to show you, Reed replied. I propose a meeting. Neutral territory, minimal forces. We have information vital to both our species' survival. There was a long pause as the Dominion commander appeared to consult with others off-screen. Finally, it turned back to face Reed. Agreed. The space station at the Omega Nebula border. 6 hours from now. 1 ship each. The transmission ended abruptly. General Davis looked at Reed with a mixture of shock and respect. I can't believe they agreed. They're scared, Reed said simply. And so should we be. The Omega Nebula space station had been built 20 years ago as a neutral meeting point for rare diplomatic exchanges between humans and the Dominion. Its design reflected the distrust between the species, 2 separate docking areas, a central meeting room with multiple security checkpoints, and automated defenses to prevent either side from attempting a takeover. The Retribution hovered nearby, its massive form dwarfing both the station and the human and Dominion ships docked there. Inside the station's meeting room, Admiral Reed sat across from the Dominion High Commander Grech, with Captain Walker standing at the head of the table. Our scientists have confirmed the energy signature at both attack sites is identical, Walker explained, showing holographic data to the Dominion leader. These are dimensional ruptures, the Harvester's method of feeding. Grech, an older Dominion with battle scars across its faceplates, studied the data carefully. And you claim to have encountered these Harvesters when your ship disappeared 50 years ago. Yes, Walker confirmed. We were pulled into their hunting ground between dimensions. They'd been pursuing civilizations across countless realities for millennia. Why should we believe you? Grech demanded. This could be an elaborate human deception. Walker smiled coldly. Because I can prove it. The technology on my ship isn't human or Dominion in origin. Your scientists can examine it. And more importantly, I know about the artifact your people found 80 years ago. The one that started your experiments with dimensional technology. Grech's yellow eyes widened. How could you possibly know about that? Because the refugees showed us, Walker replied. It was Harvester technology, planted for you to find. They've been manipulating both our civilizations, pushing us into a war that weakens us for their arrival. Reed watched the exchange carefully. The Dominion commander was clearly shaken, but not yet convinced. Even if what you say is true, Grech said finally, what do you propose? Our species have been enemies for half a century. Walker activated another hologram, showing the modified Retribution. My ship has been enhanced with technology that can detect and counteract Harvester incursions, he explained. We can install similar modifications on both human and Dominion vessels. It won't be enough to defeat them entirely, but it will give us time to develop better defenses. And in return, Grech asked suspiciously. We stopped trying to kill each other, Reed interjected. At least until the Harvester threat is eliminated. Grech was silent for a long moment, its alien features unreadable to human eyes. Finally, it spoke. I will need to consult with the Dominion Council, but the evidence is compelling. Walker nodded. The Harvesters will strike again within days, targeting larger settlements. They're testing our capabilities, learning our weaknesses. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A human officer rushed into the meeting room. Admiral Reed, we're detecting multiple dimensional ruptures forming near Earth's moon. At the same time, a Dominion aide entered from the opposite door, chittering urgently in their native language. Greg stood up immediately. The Dominion homeworld is under attack. Walker's expression remained calm, almost as if he had expected this. They're accelerating their timeline. They must have detected our meeting and realized we're attempting to form an alliance. He turned to face both Reed and Greg. We don't have time for diplomatic niceties anymore. The Retribution can reach both Earth and the Dominion homeworld quickly using dimension shift technology. But we need to decide now. Do we work together, or do we die separately? Reed looked at Greg, seeing the same terrible realization in the alien's eyes that he felt himself. They had no choice. The Valiant will follow your lead, Jim, Reed said. Greg hesitated only briefly before nodding. The Dominion vessel's strength of ages will assist in the defense of Earth, but I must return to my homeworld. I'll take you there, Walker said to Greg. The Retribution can travel between points almost instantly now. Admiral Reed, defend Earth. We'll join you as soon as possible. As they rushed to their ships, Reed grabbed Walker's arm. Jim, can we really win this? You've seen what these harvesters can do. For a moment, something of the old James Walker showed in his eyes. Determination, courage, and fierce loyalty. We can fight them, Tom. The refugees have been doing it for centuries. They just lack the resources and unity we can provide. His expression hardened again. And unlike the refugees, we have something else. We have anger. We know what these monsters have taken from us, what they plan to take, and we will not go quietly. As Reed watched the Retribution depart with the Dominion commander aboard, he realized the true meaning behind the rumors that had spread through Earth's fleet. The lost warship had returned, and its anger might be the only thing that could save them all. The space around Earth's moon was chaos. Swirling vortexes of dark energy tore open the fabric of reality as the first wave of harvester ships emerged. They resembled massive metal spiders, their hulls black and sleek, with dozens of appendages extending from their central bodies. Purple energy pulsed along their surfaces as they moved toward Earth. Admiral Reed stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the enemy approach. Around his ship, every available human vessel had formed a defensive line. Crews who had spent their entire careers training to fight the Dominion now faced an enemy beyond their understanding. All ships, hold position, Reed ordered, his voice steady despite his fear. Wait for them to come within range. The lead harvester vessel suddenly accelerated, breaking away from the others. It moved with impossible speed, covering the distance to the human fleet in seconds. Fire, Reed commanded. Every human ship unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams, missiles, and projectiles converged on the harvester ship. For a moment, Reed allowed himself to hope. Then the smoke cleared. The harvester was undamaged. The attacks had simply been absorbed into its hull, the energy disappearing without effect. Our weapons aren't working, his tactical officer reported unnecessarily. Reed watched in horror as the harvester extended one of its appendages toward the nearest human cruiser. There was a flash of purple light, and the cruiser simply vanished, consumed in seconds. Fall back to secondary positions, Reed ordered. All ships, evasive maneuvers. As the human fleet scrambled to retreat, 3 new ships appeared suddenly from what looked like tiers in space itself. Reed recognized the distinctive form of Dominion war vessels, led by the strength of ages that Commander Greg had promised. The Dominion ships immediately opened fire on the harvesters, their weapons different from human technology. These seemed to have some effect, causing the lead harvester to pause its advance. Reed's communications officer called out, "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Dominion flagship." A Dominion commander, not Greg, but one of his subordinates, appeared on screen. "Human fleet, Our weapons can damage their outer shells, but cannot penetrate their core defenses. We will distract them while you target these coordinates. The alien sent tactical data showing weak points on the harvester vessels. Understood, Reed replied, surprised by the immediate cooperation. All ships recalibrate weapons to target the coordinates provided by the Dominion. The combined human and Dominion forces fought bravely, but they were clearly outmatched. For every minor victory, for every moment they slowed the harvester advance, another ship was lost. Reed watched the casualty reports climb with growing despair. "Where is the retribution?" he muttered, searching the tactical display for any sign of Walker's ship. "We can't hold them much longer." As if in answer to his thoughts, space itself seemed to tear open behind the harvester fleet. The retribution emerged, now glowing with the same purple energy as the harvester ships, but somehow control-focused. "All vessels, this is Captain Walker," came the transmission to both human and Dominion ships. "Fall back to minimum safe distance. The retribution will engage the primary harvester ship." Reed watched in amazement as the retribution charged directly toward the largest harvester vessel. The enemy seemed to recognize the modified human ship, all of its appendages turning to focus on this new threat. "What is he doing?" Reed's executive officer asked. "They'll tear him apart." But the retribution moved with impossible speed and precision, evading the harvester's attacks. As it closed in, the modified warship began to pulse with energy. The hull seemed to shift and change, reconfiguring itself in ways that defied normal engineering. "All ships, prepare to attack on my mark." Walker's voice came through again. "The retribution will create a disruption field that will temporarily disable their defensive systems. You'll have approximately 30 seconds to inflict maximum damage." The retribution was now directly above the lead harvester. Suddenly, it released a massive pulse of energy that washed over the enemy vessels. The harvesters' movements became erratic, their hulls no longer absorbing the energy weapons fired at them. "Now," Reed ordered, "all ships, fire everything you've got." The combined fleet unleashed a devastating barrage. Human and Dominion weapons struck the harvesters simultaneously, tearing into the previously impervious hulls. The lead harvester began to break apart, pieces of its massive body drifting away. "It's working," Reed exclaimed, hardly able to believe what he was seeing. But the victory was short-lived. The disruption field generated by the retribution began to fade, and the remaining harvesters quickly adapted. They pulled back, regrouping for another assault. "Admiral Reed," Walker's voice came through, strained and different somehow. "The disruption field works, but we can only generate it in bursts. The power requirements are extreme." Reed noticed something alarming on his view screen. The retribution itself appeared to be damaged, parts of its structure becoming transparent, as if struggling to maintain its form in normal space. "Jim, what's happening to your ship?" Reed asked. There was a pause before Walker replied. "The dimensional technology requires sacrifice. The refugees warned us. Every time we use it at full power, it consumes part of the ship, and part of us." Reed felt cold dread wash over him. "What do you mean, part of us?" "We're linked to the ship now, Tom," Walker explained, his voice becoming more mechanical. "The enhancements the refugees gave us, they made us part of the retribution's systems. When it uses energy, it draws from us as well." "Pull back, Jim," Reed urged. "We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Walker replied firmly. "The harvesters are regrouping. They'll adapt to conventional attacks. Our only advantage is the disruption technology." On the view screen, Reed could see the harvester fleet forming a new attack pattern. Behind them, more dimensional ruptures were appearing as reinforcements arrived. "Commander Grech is returning from the Dominion homeworld with their primary fleet," Walker continued. "They managed to drive back the initial attack there. If we can hold here until they arrive, we have a chance." Reed made a quick decision. "All ships, form up around the retribution. Protect it at all costs. It's our only effective weapon." The battle resumed with new intensity. The Retribution generated disruption fields whenever possible, creating brief windows when the harvesters were vulnerable. Each time, the combined fleet inflicted damage, but each time, the effort clearly weakened Walker's ship and crew. After the third such cycle, Walker appeared on Reed's screen again. His appearance had changed dramatically. His skin was now translucent in places, with visible energy flowing through his body. His eyes glowed with the same purple light as the ship. "Tom," he said, his voice now barely recognizable. "One more disruption field should disable enough of them for you to hold until Greg arrives. But the Retribution won't survive it." Reed shook his head. "Jim, no. It's already decided." Walker cut him off. "The ship, we, are too far gone now. The dimensional energy has changed us too much. We can't return to normal space permanently anymore." Reed understood then what had happened to his friend, to the entire crew. Their enhancements, their integration with the ship, it had transformed them into something no longer fully human. "It was worth it, Tom," Walker said, seeming to read Reed's thoughts. "We saved Earth. And maybe, just maybe, we've given humanity a fighting chance against what's out there." The Retribution moved forward once more, positioning itself at the center of the Harvester fleet. It began to glow brighter than ever before, the energy building to impossible levels. "Goodbye, old friend," Walker said. "Remember us. And remember, the anger that drives us now is born of love for what we're protecting." The Retribution exploded in a controlled burst of dimensional energy, creating the largest disruption field yet. Every harvester ship in the vicinity froze, their systems completely disabled. "All ships, attack," Reed ordered, his voice breaking. "Don't let their sacrifice be in vain." As the fleet moved to destroy the helpless harvester vessels, Reed watched the space where the Retribution had been. For a moment, he thought he saw something. A shadow of the ship, slipping between dimensions, not quite gone. Then the Dominion reinforcements arrived, led by Commander Greg himself. Together, the combined forces destroyed the remaining harvesters, driving back the first wave of their invasion. Hours later, as the human and Dominion leaders met to discuss their new alliance and future defense plans, Reed stood alone by a viewport, looking out at the stars. "We'll find a way to defeat them permanently, Jim," he promised softly. "And someday, maybe we'll find a way to bring you home." In the depths of space, between dimensions where human senses could not perceive, the essence of what had once been the Retribution and its crew continued to exist. No longer fully ship, no longer fully human, but watching, waiting, and still burning with righteous anger at the enemies of humanity. The lost warship had returned, sacrificed itself, and in doing so, had given Earth something it desperately needed: hope.